So, word list. This is an important thing to think about because of the influence of communicative competence and patterns of wanting students to learn to communicate in using speaking. People have often turned against the use of word lists, but word lists are very valuable things when they're used properly. There are some famous word lists. There's a list of the basic 2,000 words of English that's made up of a West General Service list, the general words of the core words of English, and then the second 2,000 core words. There's an academic word list put together by Avril Coxhead, which she divides up into word families. These are really important words that are shown up over and over again across the university, not just particularly technical terms. Now, word lists are really useful when they give us important words that students need to learn. They're really a problem if the students just learn those words and think that they're going to find those words being used exactly the same way in psychology as in biology. So it's important to give students a tool that helps them see those words they need to know how to use, but then the tool needs to be expanded to say, how do you learn these? How do you recognize them in different settings? Which of these belong in particular patterns? Back to that whole idea of what does it mean to know a word. It's not just the dictionary meaning, but all the other things that go with being able to use it in different contexts. So the challenges for our students in academic vocabulary. The content courses require lots and lots of words. The psychology course itself has 200,000 words in written materials. The other thing we noticed in comparing the spoken version to the written version is that teachers don't repeat the terms out of the textbook a lot. They talk about them. They may say them one or two times, but they don't go back and say the important term like self-esteem over and over and over again in class. And it's that over and over and over again that students need with new terms in order to learn them. So students are going to have to find a way to provide themselves with multiple exposures to a word. The academic words are used in many courses, so sometimes they find a word like theory, but theory in English Lit is going to be pretty different from theory in biology. So they'll find words that are used across the university, but they have slightly different meanings in different settings, and they have to be prepared to look at the context, to look them up, to know that biology might have something going on different from English Lit. And then there are special words that are just used for a single course. Humanities is just full of those because of its looking back at a past that's not talked about in any of the other courses. Students then have to have strategies for recognizing which words they have to learn, deciding which words to learn to recognize for reading tasks, and which words to learn to speak and write for papers and presentations. One of the most important thinkers about the teaching of vocabulary has said that teachers have the responsibility of teaching students that very basic level, the first 1,000 words of English, the first 2,000 words of English. But after students have a pretty good handle on those, what we have to do is turn to helping students become good vocabulary learners. So to be able to, students themselves making decisions about what to learn and knowing enough about their own learning styles to be able to decide how they're going to learn all of this new material. So the challenges for our EAP program like ACE, for teachers in the programs, are deciding which words to teach, deciding when and how to teach vocabulary, which words in which classes, when and how to improve students' skills as vocabulary learners. In ESL, the traditional answer is, well, it's not my job. The reading teacher takes care of vocabulary. Our students will learn the words on their own. And you know, that's just not really true. It's the same thing we have to face in wanting writing across the curriculum, is that everybody in the ACE program needs to take responsibility for helping students learn important words and become better, more effective learners of new words. Remember, the basic purpose of introductory courses is teaching students the introductory concepts and the language needed to be able to think about psychology or biology or humanities or English Lit. The recent recognition is that it's everybody's jobs, then that students are not going to learn enough words by indirect learning to have the huge vocabulary they need. Because you have to read, you have to have a lot of repetitions of a word in order to learn it. Well, if 10,000 words in that material are not repeated, or even many of the words are not repeated, then students have no chance just by reading the textbook or listening in class to have learned words. So they have to have word lists, they have to have word learning strategies, and then that complements their indirect learning of new vocabulary. They have to have both. So the ACE challenge is putting vocabulary learning and vocabulary learning skills into all the ACE classes in appropriate ways. Now, there are two resources that I highly recommend to you. I understand from ACE staff that they're available in the Miami-Dade Library, but if you like them, I'd really recommend buying them. The Longman Student Grammar, and here the word student doesn't mean ESL student. It means students like you and me, people who study English. The Longman Student Grammar is based on corpus materials and has wonderful word list and information about the way that grammar clusters for different purposes. It's well, I love grammar, but I think it's very readable and easy to get at. I highly recommend it to you as a reference for yourself, but not the big grammar, but the Longman Student Grammar. And another very useful book is Averill Coxhead's Essentials of Teaching Academic Vocabulary. Very practical book with a lot of suggestions for activities and ways to present and work with vocabulary and with helping students be better vocabulary learners. I recommend both of these to you. Now, there are also some online resources, and these are listed in the ACE materials on Angel. There's a complete set of the academic word list divided by word families. There's academic word list highlighter, which is really neat. You can take a reading passage that you want to use with your students and then put it into this online program, and it'll highlight the academic word list in the reading passage to make them visible to you and the students. And there's academic word list Gapmaker. Gapmaker is a British term for what we call fill-in-the-blank activities. But you put in a reading that you're using, and it'll pull out the academic word list words so that you end up with fill-in-the-blank activity. Pretty cool. And there's a wonderful website called the Academic Profiler. It's an online site for teachers. With this site, you can take a reading and put it into the computer, the website, and it'll do an analysis for you really pretty fast. And it'll tell you, give you a list of the most frequent words, the words in the academic word list, some technical words that are there, so that you can quickly get an analysis of the vocabulary and a reading passage that you want to use with your class. So ask the ACE staff for an introduction to the Academic Profiler. It's a wonderful tool for teachers. Additional reading on academic vocabulary, anything by Averill Coxhead is going to be practical and useful, and her colleague Paul Nation is a very wonderful thinker about academic vocabulary. Keith Foss, there in Florida, has written a wonderful book called Vocabulary Myths, and it's very practical and helps us think more about the learning and teaching of vocabulary and to get past what we think we know about it to what we might learn. Schmidt and Zimmerman have done some really good. This article is especially interesting. They find out about what members of a word family do students know. So if students know feel, do they know feeling? So those are also really good resources for you as you think about how to select and teach academic vocabulary and how to help your students become better learners of the words they need.